I just opened two massive long positions on two select altcoins. So before I get into that, make sure you subscribe, smash the like button, turn on bell notifications. Everything I say here is very time sensitive and never financial advice. So obviously we had a huge CME close today for Bitcoin. It closed below 90, I think it was about like 91,800. And right now it's Bitcoin's hovering around 91,500-ish. And there's just like mass like panic. Everyone's just like, calling for the end of the world. The sky's falling. Obviously the stock market is selling off. We had there's just no shortage of bearish news. Everyone's just, in my opinion, being very, very silly because, all these people that claim to be like professionals and they've been around for, everyone seemingly is just like, oh, I've been around since like 2012, 2013. They all just kind of say the same thing and everyone thinks they're just a genius. And I am by no stretch of the imagination like claiming that I am anything other than just somebody who's been in the market for at least quite some time. This is my third 4-year cycle. And I've seen a lot of kind of just trends and kind of just like sentiment, not even just in cryptocurrency, but in equities and stocks and just market sentiment in general. And when you understand how the charts basically trade and how the markets tend to move, it's basically based off of psychology, and that's what pretty much is technical analysis. And so my whole thesis why I long these two coins, I'm going to get into the specific ones in a second, but basically whenever people are just like doomsday calling, you see fear and greed basically at like single digits. Obviously a lot of altcoins have corrected like 50-60%. Obviously Bitcoin has taken a massive nosedive and things just cannot seem to get any worse. They've just been getting hammered every single week. I think at the very minimum, and this has been my thesis all along, if you're like not new to the channel, then you know this, I've been expecting a bounce. And again, I'm happy to be wrong. At the end of the day, if you open up leverage trades or you're a trader, it's essentially just betting on probabilities. And so I'm happy to be wrong, and I'll maybe share like where I think I'm wrong, but again, this is just my whole thesis, and again, I'm happy to be wrong. So I opened up along on Solana and Ethereum. Now, obviously, these are two major altcoins that have spot ETFs. They're freshly new to the market when it comes to spot ETFs. I did buy some spot Bitcoin, but I don't typically trade that just because you can get a lot of volatility, but I don't like to trade really high leverage. And whenever I typically will open leverage positions, I don't go above like 3 or 4, which basically means you can withstand basically a 33 to 25% drawdown. Obviously you want to have like stop losses in place and all that kind of stuff. I never recommend leverage trading at all to anybody. I think it's a very risky thing, and a lot of people just don't know how to risk manage. And a lot of people bet with way too much money, frankly speaking. And so obviously I've been pretty much allocated into the market. I have taken some off the table, but I just can't be super bearish right now because everyone is super bearish. And I think at the very minimum, my base case has been we need to retest around $105,000 to $106,000. That doesn't have to happen, but basically the reason why I'm seeing that and why I opened up these longs is because obviously you have the confluence of everybody being just the most bearish I've seen in a long time, and we're still hovering around like $90,000. Not to mention we have all these built up short positions that are on the upside. And so basically, obviously Binance basically runs the show. They have all the volume. They control pretty much 90% of the price action across all of the exchanges. And so basically all these long positions are being liquidated, and pretty much you just have all this built up liquidity in short positions. And so these exchanges make most of their money liquidating traders and just off of trading fees and volume, not necessarily the price of the assets. And so obviously October 10th was a really bad liquidation event in my opinion. I think a lot of people lost their shirt, right? Like they probably lost so many assets. And I have like a little bit of a theory that maybe Binance has been helping them accumulate and just kind of trying to fill that gap, because they were basically like the main culprits that caused this whole crash. Like people can say that it's like, whatever, but in my opinion, it was basically their oracles and their price action that basically caused the cascading event. And so they have there's just a huge black eye on them, right? And so, we basically just been down only. And I think at the very minimum, it's worth me in particular just taking just a little bit of a risk and seeing, kind of what plays out. And then obviously if we go up from here, I'm going to have stop losses and trailing stop losses. So ideally, if I lose, I don't lose too much, or at least I'm stopped out in profits. And so going back to my whole thesis, I think that there's a lot of liquidity built up, and I think that everybody's just kind of calling the end of the cycle. And so there's this thing called max pain, which if you guys are experienced traders, you know this. And basically that's like where the price action can move to hurt the most amount of people. And I think right now, since everybody's consensus is that we're just like bearish, going into this bearish trend, this bearish cycle, I think that the most painful thing that would happen after people getting liquidated on October 10th, after all these people just watching their altcoins bleed 50%, 60%, and them selling their positions, I think that the most painful thing to happen right now is to see the price reverse and go up and make people either FOMO back into the market or just hate the rally going higher. And so that's kind of my little thesis. I don't want to get too much into other details, but obviously, you know, if you're not new to the channel, you kind of know that this has been my plan all along. Again, I'm gonna obviously update you with I'm gonna update you guys with this because you guys love to kind of, you know, banter with me and say like, oh, this guy is like, you know, calling the top or the bottom, and they kind of like counter-trade me. But, you know, I'm happy to be wrong. That's what you get with social media. You know, just you put your opinions out there, right? So yeah, I will let you guys know what I'm doing, and I'm curious to know what your guys' sentiment is overall with all this, you know, recent price action. Do you think we're going to go up or down from here? Drop them in the comments. So again, make sure you subscribe, smash the like button, and turn on your bell notifications. I will see y'all soon. Bye.